Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Today is Monday, April the 20th. It's a brand new week here in the markets. As you can see, we're having a little bit of a gap down here on the futures so far coming into market open. SPY and Qs dropping just a little bit here, and a couple other names dropping just a little bit. But we do have some news that we had over the weekends. But coming into market open, we're still maintaining above key levels. We'll kind of talk about the levels and, of course, some of the news that we have. We have a bunch of earnings this week here as well. But yeah, before we head on to the charts, what's up, everyone? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. What's up, everyone? Good morning, Victor. Good morning, B Roots. Good morning, Andy. Good morning, Marcus. Good morning, P1. Christina, Maria, TW, Martin, Cody, Knight, KO. What's up, Michael? What's up, Vinaj? Duval, what's up, 50? Yeah, what's up, everyone? Hope you guys had a great weekend. Eduardo, Ashley, Gerald, Chris, Lamit, Hartik, good morning. Yeah. All right, let me pull up the Forex Factory here in the economic calendar, and then we'll take a look at the earnings calendar here in just a second as well. But as you can see here, we did have some news over the weekend with the Hormuz opening and shutting. You can see before we kind of went from the war news to now just being the Strait of Hormuz, which is just going to be the kind of key thing moving forward, but not really impacting the market as much. We are down about 0.5% here on the Qs. We originally ended up gapping much lower, but now we're right around our previous day lows, and we do have a small gap that we'll talk about here in a second. But let's pull up the economic calendar coming into market open. We don't have anything on Monday. Tuesday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, core retail sales, along with the retail sales month over month. And then we do have Fed chair speaking. So that is something to keep in mind. That's going to be at 10 a.m. And then the rest of the week, not really too much. We have unemployment on Thursday at 8:30, flash services. And then we also do have the revised consumer sentiment, which is going to be at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is what we have. The main thing, at least for the news that we do have, of course, is going to be any sort of war news or any sort of news in the markets regarding the Hormuz. That's going to be fairly important. Then, of course, we do have earnings season as well, which I'll pull up here. So for the earnings, notable earnings coming into this week, primarily Tesla here on Wednesday. But to kind of kick it off, Monday, some things to kind of keep in mind. Not really too many big ones. Tomorrow, UNH. We have RTX, a bunch of other kind of retail brokers. We have some airlines here, Interactive Brokers on Tuesday after close. The main thing, of course, is going to be Tesla. So Tesla on Wednesday, we'll keep an eye on Tesla, kind of bouncing off for key level support on the higher time frames. But Tesla on Wednesday after close is going to be key, and then of course Intel here on Thursday as well. So these are the big ones, at least for this week. Next week we have a bunch of Mag 7 reporting. But at least for this week, we'll keep an eye on Tesla and Intel. That's going to be on Thursday. So with that being said, let's head straight into the charts to see exactly what we're looking for coming into this week. There is quite a things to talk about here now, especially with these SPY and Qs at all-time highs. And then the rest of the names, right, either at all-time highs or very close to all-time highs here as well. So starting off with the SPY chart. So as you can see right here, we're at all-time highs. We closed above it on the weekly time frame with a strong candle close. You can see 2 weeks ago closed inside of its range, and then last week huge weekly candle closing above our all-time high. So coming into this week here on the SPY, another gap down over the weekend, very similar to what it did last week. So what we're going to be looking for, of course, with news as well, is if we're going to fill the gap coming into market open. Here on the SPY, right, if we're looking at this on the weekly time frame, there's a good chance this next weekly candle can close green, right? We could see a potential wick back down in towards our previous all-time highs, which would be fantastic. But as long as you can maintain above our previous all-time highs here now, which is going to be our 700, we're going to have a bullish stance of the market moving forward. So as long as you can maintain above key levels, where anything above 700 is going to be a higher low on the weekly time frame. Now, right, it could even come all the way back down in towards our 690 and be fairly bullish and have continuation, preferably above our 700 for continuation. So now the overall market has flipped here, right? When would I potentially have a little bit more of a bearish stance on the market, even though now we're at all-time highs? Let's say, for example, we had some bearish news, and then the next weekly candle, for example, had a huge rejection here off our all-time highs, and then we ended up closing back inside of the range. So if this were to occur, and let's say the next weekly candle end up closing, or this weekly candle ends up closing very bearish, we end up closing back inside this range, closing back inside this 700, then in this case, I would actually be a lot more neutral in the markets if this were the case here on the SPY. If we can maintain above 700, then we can expect all major dips to continue, which as you can see currently, we're already at our 706. So what we're going to be looking for is just major dips in the markets. So the levels that I have marked out today here on the daily chart is going to be that previous all-time highs. As you can see, this is going to be that higher low area. As long as SPY can really maintain above that 700, that previous all-time highs, we're going to be looking for continuation towards the upside. If we go onto the hourly chart here, what are some of the levels that we have coming into market open? So today we actually have two gaps on the chart. So that's something to keep in mind, right? We did end up filling that gap on the futures. If we're looking at it on the indices themselves, we're going to have two gaps. So as you can see right here, we're going to have this gap that we created over the weekend. And then we're also going to have this gap up that we created here on Thursday. So price is going to open up right around the 706. What is more likely to happen coming to market open, right? The potential gap fill back towards the upside, or if we can see this potential break underneath that previous low for this push down in towards that gap fill that we created here on 702. One thing that we do have to keep in mind is that, right, the ES and NQ, we're actually bouncing all the way off our Thursday's lows here in the overnight session. So if we look at the ES, sometimes this gives us a little bit more information, right? We actually end up gapping down all the way in towards our Thursday's highs. And I can see the overall markets are really bouncing off this level. Similar thing here with the NQ as well. So coming into market open, what I'm personally going to be looking for here is going to be the hold of our previous day lows, right? We're going to have a couple scenarios marked out, but the number one scenario coming to market open is the hold above our previous day lows for a push back up in towards that gap fill that we have created. So let's keep an eye out on the SPY above our 706 coming into market open. Another possible scenario here is above our pre-market high for pushback up and towards our previous day close as well. Another possible scenario, let's say for example, we break underneath that previous day lows, buyers step in, we reclaim back above that level, another possible reversal off that 706. So this is the scenarios that we have on SPY coming to market open. Really in this type of market, what we're just going to be looking for is any sort of major dips. So in this case, we're gapping down. Let's look for that continuation back towards the upside. Can we look for a short? We can, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult. If we're interested in shorts, we'd like to see a little bit of consolidation, maybe a break later into the session, hold underneath, right, with a tight stop, looking for that continuation down in towards that full gap fill. So what we can keep an eye out for on downside is underneath that previous day lows for that retest continuation down in towards that 703. The good thing about this short for this gap fill lower is it's very minimal risk, right? If you do want to look for that retest off our previous day lows, you can be looking for a trade down towards the 703 with the stop just to break above. That's what we have for the SPY coming into market open. And now let's go on to the ES, right? If we're looking at this just strictly off the hourly time frame, I think this is something to keep in mind, right? There is a very much better chance that we're going to gravitate higher just based off the higher time frames, the fact that we're at all-time highs. We end up holding key levels here in the overnight session. Now we like to see this gap fill towards the upside. So I am leaning more bullish, right? We'll see the price action intraday, but higher time frames is of course bullish. So we do want to be trading in line with the higher time frames. So key levels that we have here on the ES, what we can draw is going to be that previous low on Friday. So key level is going to be the 7120. Higher time frame key point of interest. If we do want to see some upside here now, maintain above our previous day lows, hold above that level for this push up in towards that previous day close. This is the number one scenario that I have on the ES. Another possible scenario above our pre-market highs here as well. Continuation up and towards this full gap fill. So this is what we have for the ES coming into market open here. As I mentioned, if we are interested in shorts, right, shorts are in play underneath that previous day lows, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Still keep an eye on in this one for potential move back down in towards our low. In this case, it is our 70.90 on the higher time frame. So this is what we have for the ES and SPY coming into market open. Now let's go on to the QQQ here as well. So as you can see here on the Q's weekly time frame, key levels that we're going to personally have marked out is this previous all-time highs, 640. So as you can see here on the weekly time frame, really strong candle close, similar to SPY and the rest of the major indices. I'm going to maintain a bullish stance in the market, as I mentioned, as long as we're above our previous all-time highs. I'm going to be looking for longs in the markets. The only way I'm going to be looking for shorts, as I talked about earlier, is if we have a huge rejection. Then I'm going to be a lot more neutral in the market. And then coming to next week, can still be looking for some more shorts. But that's unlikely to happen just based off of the market structure that we have, the strong candle close. As long as we maintain above that 640, we're going to be looking for continuation higher. For on the daily time frame, 640, as I mentioned, is key as well, right? Higher lows here on the daily time frame, basing above our previous all-time highs. This would actually be a nice pullback long area. If we can get some sort of pullback here on the daily time frame, right? This would be your first pullback, right? 640 previous all-time highs on the higher time frames. That would be key on the QQQ. But let's go into the lower time frames here. Coming into market open, and the levels that I personally have marked out today is our previous day lows. We also have our Thursday's highs here, which we ended up bouncing on Sunday's open. But coming into market open here on the Qs, what I like to see is the hold above our 645, push back up in towards our previous day close. Above our pre-market highs, push back up in towards our previous day close. Another possible scenario, if we kind of break underneath, right, fake out, reclaim, push back towards the upside here on the Qs is in play here as well. Regardless, what we like to see is any sort of major dip that we do have on the SPY and Qs to get bought up for a push back up in towards. Now it's going to be that previous day close. And of course, it's going to be our last week's highs, which in this case is our 650. So it's kind of similar to last week, what we're looking for after this gap down in the markets. We're going to be looking for that continued pushback towards the upside. So last week we gapped down on bearish news, market open, right? You can kind of consolidate and then end up pushing back up and towards that previous day close along with that previous day highs. Similar kind of thesis coming into today, right? We can push lower, kind of consolidate, but if we bounce here off our previous day lows, we're going to be looking for that reversal trade back up and towards that 648. If we go on to the NQ, key levels that we have marked out is going to be that Thursday's highs. Other levels that we can have marked out here now as well. We can mark out that previous day lows if we'd like. But for the Qs, along with the NQ coming to market open, let's just mark out that previous day lows that we have, drag it up into this candle right here. So for the NQ coming to market open, if we do want to see some upside above our previous day lows, 24,640. Sorry, our 26,640 here on the higher time frames, above our pre-market highs, continuation back up in towards that full gap fill here as well. So these are the scenarios that we have on the NQ for some upside coming to market open. As I mentioned, downside is in play if the markets consolidate, get underneath that previous day lows and holds. As I mentioned, not as interested in downside just based off of the higher time frame. So until we can break underneath its previous candle low, really not interested in downside whatsoever. As you can see here, we have the NQ, which is the NASDAQ. So we're essentially bar by barring this on the daily time frame. So until we can break underneath its previous candle low here on the daily chart, don't try and short. It's going to be very difficult because most of the times if it does come down, it's going to be a fake out just based off of the daily chart, right? Just by looking at this on the daily time frame, right? Every single candle here has been green towards the upside. So we're just going to keep looking for a push higher until we have that strong candle close or that weak candle close underneath that previous day lows here. So until we can do that, just look for any sort of longs in the markets for continuation back towards the upside. Okay. Let's go on to the SMH here now. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers you'd like me to go over, you guys can drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below here as well. All right, let me grab some water here and then we'll head on to the SMH and then the rest of the names here. The Telegram and the free watch list is in the description below. What's up, everyone? Good morning. Thank you, Jack. You're helping me out a lot. Appreciate that. Do you recommend SPY for long-term investment? SPY's at all-time highs. If you have any more major dips, 10% drops on the SPY and Qs is good. VIX is above 30, good as well. But now we're at all-time highs. It doesn't make too much sense if you're going to be right long-term investing right when it's at all-time highs. There's a couple names that are at discounts. But generally speaking, when the VIX drops, that's when you should be buying, not especially for long term, not when the SPY's at all-time highs. All right, let's go into the SMH here. So as you can see, SMH, really strong weekly candle close as well, breaking above our all-time highs level. 2 weeks ago, closed above. Last week, another strong close here as well. SMH really leading the indices back towards the upside. As long as we can maintain, right, higher lows now, right, break above, retest, break above, right, come all the way up and towards 480, 500, retest, and then continuation higher here. So this is going to be your next kind of support, 420, at least on the weekly time frame. You can see it's just kind of slowly building higher lows on the weekly chart. If we're looking at the daily chart here, this one really solid push towards the upside. Now we're just going to basically have to base it off of our previous day highs, previous day lows, if we're looking at any sort of intraday price action. But the key levels coming to market open on the SMH, and what I do have marked out, is going to be our previous day highs and our Thursday's highs. Other levels that we can have marked out here now is going to be that previous day lows. So coming into market open here on the SMH, we do have a very small gap. If we do want to see continuation towards upside, bounce play here off that 460, previous day lows for continuation higher. Another possible scenario above our pre-market highs, continuation up and towards our previous day close, along with our previous day highs here on the SMH. If we do break underneath that 460 coming to market open, similar thing, we do have a gap towards the downside. But the overall markets, right, we already bounced off that level coming into market open on the SPY and Qs and especially on the future. So until we can have a strong candle close underneath that previous day lows on the daily time frame, then we're just going to continue to look for longs in the market. IWM, another one at all-time highs here. Really nice push towards the upside. If you're looking at this on the weekly time frame, nice strong candle close here as well above our previous all-time highs. For the IWM, similar thing, maintain above 270 for continuation towards the upside. If we're looking at this on the daily chart, we do have a pretty big gap. So as you can see, we're gapping above. This is also our previous all-time highs here as well. It'd actually be nice if we can come back down, fill its gap, retest our previous all-time highs, and continue towards the upside. This is the best case scenario on all the major indices, at least on the SPY and Qs and everything else as well. It would be nice if we can come back down and retest that previous all-time highs. As for the IWM, the key levels that I have marked out today, 274, reclaim back above, push back up and towards that 275 in that previous day close. If we consolidate here, break underneath, then we can see a potential reversal back down in towards that 270 here on the higher time frames. Okay, now let's go on to the tech names that we have coming into this week, starting off with Tesla, and then we'll make our way down here as well. Can't find it. It's right in the description. If you look in the description, it's going to say free watch list. And if you join that, you'll have the free watch list and you have the permissions as well. Okay, let's start off on Tesla. So as you can see here, if we're looking at this on the weekly time frame, this was our previous consolidation that we talked about, the original breakout level. We mentioned for Tesla, keep an eye out on a potential bounce here with the overall market. So last week, we also were bar by barring it on the weekly time frame. We kind of had this downtrend forming here as well. A nice bounce on Tesla back up and towards our 400, which is this general area which we broke down from. So this 400 is going to be a key level on the higher time frames. If we're looking at it from a bar by bar on a weekly standpoint, Tesla very much well could potentially kind of reject off this 400 level. It really depends on how earnings is going to shape up. We do have earnings on Wednesday, so that is the major news event that we have on Tesla. Really, besides that, nothing else matters besides the earnings that we do have on Wednesday. If we're looking at this on the daily time frame, really not too much to talk about here as well. We did reclaim back above that 380, which was key, previous level of support. As you can see here, nice reclaim, maintain above 380 for continuation. But the key thing, as I mentioned, is going to be that earnings on Wednesday after close. So at least coming into this week, we'll be a little bit more cautious on Tesla. We'll keep an eye out on the contracts today. But coming into earnings tomorrow and Wednesday, we do want to be a little bit more hands-off, unless you're already well positioned from last week, right? You get in entries down at 360, you're planning to hold some trailers, maybe for earnings, right? You're in a good spot. If we're opening up brand new positions, doesn't make too much sense if we're going to be holding into earnings. Unless we have a nice buffer. But coming into market open here today, the key levels that we are going to have marked out on Tesla, previous day lows along with our key levels from last week. If we do want to see some upside in the markets, there's a couple scenarios that we can be looking for. Bounce play off that previous day lows hold, continuation back up and towards that previous day close. Another possible scenario above our pre-market highs, push back up in towards our previous day close and potentially our last week's highs here as well, 407.50. For Tesla, only way I'm interested in downside is if we reject off that previous day close and we end up fading back down in towards that previous day lows, kind of this pop and fade scenario, or if price came all the way back down underneath that previous day lows, held underneath that previous day lows, we do have a very small gap fill that we created last week down in towards that 390. Either way on Tesla, I'm going to be a little bit more cautious this week. I am still leaning, of course, more towards the upside, right? Just based off of last week's price action and based off the higher time frames. But I'm going to be a little bit more cautious just due to the fact that we do have earnings on Wednesday. Today's really the only day we can trade Tesla, potentially tomorrow. But of course, on Wednesday, we want to be hands off. And then for today, we can just be looking for continuation above that 392. So 392 hold. And we also have the reclaim, which is going to be back above our pre-market highs, kind of this previous day close general area, as well for a push back up and towards our 404 and above. All right, let's go on to NVIDIA. Let's look at this on the weekly time frame. So for NVIDIA, strong candle close here on the weekly chart, back up in towards our kind of breaking outside this range here as well. So what we have is potentially kind of this like head and shoulders pattern. But now we're invalidating this head and shoulders. Next level is going to be that all-time highs. This is one of my favorite setups on NVIDIA. It is taking a little bit longer to set up. You can see a couple of these other names had some nice explosive moves towards our all-time highs. NVIDIA finally had a nice strong candle close here as well, but basically back above this period of consolidation, now maintain above 195, continuation up and towards our 210 here is in play. So what we like to mark out now on NVIDIA, if we go into the daily chart, what I do have marked out is our previous level of resistance, multiple touches, maintain NVIDIA above 195, continuation up and towards our all-time highs. Let's go back onto the hourly chart. Key levels that we have coming into market open is going to be our previous day lows along with our previous day highs, 202. If you do want to see some upside coming to market open above our pre-market highs, continuation up and towards our previous day close. Another possible scenario is the bounce play, kind of off our 199 previous day lows along with kind of this pre-market level, multiple touches here as well. Hold above that level, continuation up and towards that 202 is in play. Only way I'm interested in downside on Nvidia, not really interested on any of these names really, unless we can break structure right underneath that 199, then we can see a little bit more downside here on some of these individual names. AMD, let's talk about this one. Higher time frame, really strong candle close, nice bounce off the key level support, strong candle close above our all-time highs here now as well. If we go into the daily chart, what we like to see here on AMD, maintain above really 270, continuation towards the upside. If we're looking at this on the hourly time frame, we did have some news on Thursday, nice push towards the upside. Friday, a little bit more consolidation. As for today here on AMD, kind of forming this flat top, break above previous day highs, hold, continuation towards the upside. Another possible scenario that we do have marked out. So what we have in this case is going to be our previous day highs, above our previous day highs, hold, continuation towards the upside. We can even come all the way back down in towards our pre-market lows and our previous day lows for continuation higher here as well. So this is what we have on AMD coming to market open. Let's keep an eye on this one coming to today for continuation. Apple, weekly time frame, nice kind of bounce, strong candle close. This one's not quite at all-time highs, but for Apple, daily charts building up these higher lows. Nice retest that we had off our 262. Coming to Apple this week, the key levels I personally have marked out previous day highs along with our previous day lows. If we do want to see some upside now on Apple, above our previous day highs for continuation. Another possible retest level is this 269. Multiple touches from Friday and the pre-market here as well. 269 on Apple for continuation. All right, for Google, let's go into this one. This one, very bullish, right off our key levels. Nice bounce here. Weekly candle closing fairly strong. Next level that we do have is going to be that all-time highs here, of course. So for Google, really next level that we do have is going to be 350 on the higher time frames. At least for the lower time frames, the key levels that we are going to have marked out is going to be our 330. Other levels that we can have marked out here as well is this level, which is going to be that 336. So based off the hourly time frame, maintain above, right? Really 336 is ideal for continuation, higher lows off this level for a pushback towards the upside. If we do have a little bit of a bigger pullback even, that would still be very bullish for continuation higher. So for Google, key levels that we are going to have marked out is going to be this high, and we can kind of drag this over. We do have multiple touches off this general area. As for Microsoft, so Microsoft did have a really strong push towards the upside. Now you can see a little bit of seller stepping in here on Friday, and now we're about to have a small pullback. So coming into Microsoft today, key levels that we're going to have marked out, 420 along with that 412. If you do want to see upside, reclaim back above, continuation up and towards 430 here on Microsoft. Really, this is the only scenario that I have is the reclaim back above our previous day lows. It could also kind of reject off our previous day lows, consolidate, reclaim later into the session, push back towards the upside, or based off the higher time frames, come all the way back down and then bounce play here off that 412. Regardless, you're going to keep an eye out on your 420 or your 412 here on Microsoft. As for Meta, let's go into the higher time frames on this one, starting off on the daily time frame. Nice kind of V-shaped bounce on Meta. Key levels that we do have marked out, of course, is going to be that 680. Multiple touches here. Now we're reclaiming back above 680. Let's look for that 680 hold for that continuation back up and towards 700 and above. So for Meta, key levels that we have marked out is going to be that 680 as I mentioned. So what we like to see is the hold above our 680. If we can maintain above that 680, continuation up and towards 690 is in play. So keep in mind for Meta or above our previous day highs for continuation here as well. This one, as I mentioned, 680 on the higher time frames is very key. So let's keep an eye on that retest off our 680, right? If we're looking at this on the hourly time frame, that's going to be our higher low level. Right, maintain above 680, continuation right back up and towards 690. All right, let's go into Amazon here. Another one very close to our all-time highs, kind of gravitating back up and towards this all-time highs general area. A couple of reactions, and now you can see there's going to be a little bit of a pullback here off that all-time highs level. So based off the daily time frame here on Amazon, you can see we're kind of rejecting a little bit here off our key levels, all-time highs 256, a little bit of a pullback here on Amazon. Now we're also underneath our previous day lows here as well. So if we do want to see some upside coming to this week on Amazon, reclaim back above that 250 is going to be key for a pushback towards the upside. Another possible scenario, right? Kind of consolidate, reclaim later into the session, continuation back towards the upside here as well. Regardless, Amazon, right? Higher time frame, fairly bullish. Hourly time frame, similar thing, very bullish on a lot of these tickers. So that first pullback on the hourly time frame is most likely going to get bought up coming to market open. All right, as for Netflix, this one had earnings last week. Nice gap down in the markets. Kind of just consolidated consolidated on Friday. The key levels that we are going to have marked out is going to be that 96. Also coincides with this earnings low here. And then we also have our 100 key cycle level. And then we can also mark out that previous day highs. If we do want to see any sort of earnings reversal, not going to occur as of yet, but for Netflix, bounce play here off that previous day lows. Another possible scenario above our previous day highs, continuation back up and towards our 100 key cycle level here and above. Okay, that's what we have here on Netflix coming into market open here now. Now let's go on to a couple other names that we do have. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can now drop them in the chat. We'll probably go over some for the next kind of 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'm going to call it a day here. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like. Let's see if we can get to 200 likes. And of course, if you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below here as well. Okay, let's go on to Palantir number 1. Wouldn't the ceasefire be bearish, right? Based off the news events, don't put too much emphasis on the news events in itself, right? Similar thing to last week, gap down in the markets, very bullish, right? Instantly being bought up, right? Whenever we do have bearish news and the markets don't head lower, that's a good sign the markets are going to reverse. And now we're going to come into the same game plan with this week, right? Same thing as last week. We're just going to be looking for any sort of dips that we do have to go long in the market. Since the higher time frames is at all-time highs, right? Until we have any sort of outlier major news that's going to affect the market, right? So far, this market is being affected, but it's instantly getting bought up, right? Similar thing here on most of these news events that we do have, right? Gap down, but now we're getting bought up and reversing back. And there's a very good chance we just end up gravitating back up and towards that previous day close. All right, let's go into Palantir. Palantir, nice bounce here off the lows. Now we're coming back up and towards key levels that we do have marked out. If we're looking at this on the hourly time frame, 150 along with that 140 is key. Upside above 150, another possible higher low off our 140 is key here for Palantir. So those are going to be the key levels on the hourly time frame. If you're looking at this on that 15-minute time frame, you can just mark out that high, which is our 144, right? Similar thing, bounce off our 144, underneath 144, you can see a little bit of a pullback. AVGO. Keep an eye on AVGO for an all-time highs push. This one, nice push towards the upside. You're looking at this on the weekly time frame, very strong bounce right off our key level of support, back up and towards our all-time highs. For AVGO coming into this week, key levels that I do have marked out is the news candle that we had. So as long as you can maintain above our 396, continuation towards the upside here on AVGO is in play, above our pre-market highs reversal here as well. Oracle, this one I thought it had earnings coming up soon, but Oracle, nice kind of bounce last week right off our key level of support, just kind of had a mini relief bounce on the markets. If we're looking at Oracle, this one's not as bullish compared to the rest of the names, right? You can see a lot of these names like SPY and Qs already back at all-time highs. Oracle, right, had a really massive drop towards the downside, and now this is the first technically bullish weekly candle that we do have. And now you can see it's actually just right back in towards a key level of support that turned into resistance. So I wouldn't be surprised if Oracle has a potential kind of rejection here off that 190, and we kind of come back inside the range that we do have. So for Oracle, key levels that we do have now is going to be this 170 on the higher time frame. So keep an eye out on that. MU. MU, let's keep an eye on MU coming into market open. One of my main watches, we do have this kind of cup and handle forming on the hourly time frame. MU is going to be one of my main watches coming to this week. So let's keep an eye on this one for this potential kind of cup and handle formation. A little bit of rejections off our all-time highs. As long as you can build up these higher lows, what we like to see here on MU above our all-time highs, 470, continuation towards the upside. So I do like MU a lot. I'm not sure if it's going to set up today, but keep an eye out on MU based off of the higher time frames. Right now, we just like to see it kind of maintain above really 452. That's going to be your higher low here on the higher time frames. Another trigger level above our previous day highs, continuation here as well. Keep an eye out on MU. Keep an eye out on SNDK. Right, kind of higher lows are being built here as well. Break back above our 940, continuation up and towards our all-time highs. Yeah, MU, WDC, SNDK, all memory names, very similar charts. So kind of forming this daily flag pattern. Let's see if we can get that continuation up and towards our all-time highs. So SNDK above our previous day highs, potential room up and towards 980. Intel closed flat on Friday, but let's talk about Intel here. What we have is our previous all-time highs. I guess the data doesn't even bring it back all the way towards like 2021 for some reason, probably with all the dividends and everything else. Let's go back onto this. Yeah, adjusted for dividends here. But the key levels for Intel is all the way back. I'm not sure if this is the correct chart, but we have our high that we created here in 2020. And of course, we have the high all the way back from the dot-com crash, which is basically from 2000s. But for Intel, this one, nice push towards the upside. Key levels that we do have marked out is, of course, going to be our last week's highs, at least moving forward on Intel. Just keep an eye out on our 6550s. And then other levels that we can have marked out previous day lows. If you do want to see some upside, reclaim is in play, or the retest all the way back down in towards that 6550. WDC, nice kind of hold. Keep an eye on the retest off our 368. Hood, nice bounce off the lows last week here. This one does have earnings coming up, but Hood in a really good spot. Nice kind of W-shaped recovery right off our key levels. And now Hood, nice bounce back up and towards our 92. Next levels I like to see Hood kind of gravitate towards is really the area that it broke down from, plus this kind of gap that we have here. So I like to see that push up in towards our 100 key psych level here on Hood. So we do have this daily gap. Right, I'd like to see Hood continue higher. Levels that I do have marked out on Hood is going to be our 84. Of course, today what we have marked out is our 90. So pre-market highs along with our previous day lows hold for a continuation back up and towards our previous day highs and above. SoFi, very similar chart to Hood here, not as bullish, but nice kind of bounce last week. Key levels that you'd like to see it above, of course, is going to be that 20 key psych level. And as for a couple other names, yeah, Marvel, this one, nice gap up towards our all-time highs. Key levels that we do have marked out on Marvel is going to be that previous all-time highs. And of course, our last week's highs here as well. So we can mark this out, drag it down. And then for the daily chart at least, right, key levels that we're going to have marked out is going to be that previous day highs along with our previous all-time highs. And then today at least mark out that pre-market highs along with our pre-market lows. With this gap up, whenever we have nothing to go off of, we're going to have to use the most relevant price action, which is the price action that we currently made here in the pre-market. So mark out that pre-market highs and pre-market lows and you can use that. Okay, let's talk about the levels that we have in the thesis coming to market open. How do I draw these lines? You can go on to the free watch list and I have a video pinned in the Telegram explaining exactly how I draw these levels. All right, so the game plan coming to market open is looking for this push back up and towards our previous day close and potentially our previous day highs. So that's going to be the game plan coming to market open. We can consolidate coming to market open. We can have a little bit of a pullback, but we're going to maintain a bullish bias along above our previous day lows. Similar thing here to the Qs, maintain a bullish bias above our previous day lows. It can have a little bit of a pullback, consolidate, and then reverse back up and towards that previous day close along with our previous day highs. So that's going to be the main thing coming to market open here. Based off that thesis, right, Tesla has earnings this week. Going to be a little bit more cautious, but Tesla reclaim back above 400, continuation towards upside, or the bounce here off our previous day lows. NVIDIA, I do like as well based off the daily chart. Don't really like the price action as much intraday, but you can keep an eye out on Nvidia above our previous day lows. AMD, it's now going to be above our previous day highs for continuation. As for everything else, right? Apple, a lot of these names look very good for continuation. So anything that does have a gap down, right? They all look fairly similar, right? Microsoft, Reclaim, a lot of these names look very good just because a lot of them are higher timeframes are setting up, they're flipping back bullish, right? So you're just going to be really looking for anything that has relative strength or relative weakness coming to market open because we do have a bullish bias, right? We're just going to be looking for the names that do have a lot of relative strength coming to today. And that's going to be based off of right the intraday price action within the first kind of 5 to 15 minutes. Any name that has a big bounce off key levels as the SPY holds and maintains above that previous day lows, that's going to be one of the names that is going to lead the markets back higher. But you can keep an eye out on basically all these names here, right? Tesla, Nvidia, AMD, Apple even looks good. If you're looking at Meta above our 680, right? Amazon reclaim back above that 250. All these other tickers here, AVGO, you can keep an eye out on for an all-time highs push. MU even looks good here on the daily time frame and kind of this 1 hour cup and handle that I mentioned. So keep an eye out on MU, SNDK daily flag pattern, hourly downtrend break above our 940. All these ones look fairly solid coming to market open. We even have other runners as well. MSTR and coin, nice kind of bounce here on Friday. A little bit of a pullback on a couple of these ones, but yeah, that is going to be it for me today. I'm going to get ready for market open here now. Can only see the X linked on your WAP and not Telegram. It's in, if you reclaim permissions, if you join the free community, you'll be able to join permissions and I'll just kind of link it there. But yes, that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. If you guys haven't joined the free watch list, that of course is in the description below. Yeah. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.